23 years ago, I was an 18-month-old baby. I was raped, beaten, and left for dead by Jesse Demons. The demons inside that man were pure evil. The things that were done to me, I just cannot comprehend. If it wasn't for the nurses and doctors and the love of my family, I would not have survived. It was a pure miracle that I did. I was taught to forgive and forget, but that only happens in fairy tales. I do not forgive him. Not only was a horrible thing done to me, but it put my family through hell and changed all of our lives forever.
Those are the words of the survivor, of the victim, of the little infant that was wrecked by this monster. Those are the words that are being read by his paternal aunts on behalf of him, because he can't be here today because what this roach did to him. Now, if you can imagine it, he was sentenced to 59 years, but up for parole 31 years early. Let's watch this parole hearing in its full, and I will unpack it with what details I have at the end.
Jesse, please state your DOC number for me.
451048.
Okay, Mr. DeMond, I'm gonna read some information to put into the record. You are a first felony offender. You have a parole date of 8/17/24, a good time date of 11/25/2033, and a full term date of 6/25/2055. You're serving a 59-year sentence for second-degree battery, aggravated sexual battery, and second-degree cruelty. Does that sound correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Mr. DeMond, tell me why you think we should let you out today, and tell me a little bit about your offenses.
I can't honestly tell you that there's a good reason. All I can tell you is that since I've been incarcerated, I have shown due diligence in changing my conduct and becoming a person that God wants me to be. I realized that the act I committed was senseless. There was no point. I experienced some things as a troubled youth, and I lost my direction in life. I got entangled in drugs, and I made a lot of bad decisions coming up that affected a lot of people in a negative manner, and I choose not to be that way anymore. I would like to affect people in a positive manner, educate, and do my calling for Jesus.
Okay. Warden, you have anything to say about it?
Well, Mr. Freeman, of course, as always, first of all, my deepest sympathies to the victim and the family. You know, Damon has demonstrated, the ability to work hard while being incarcerated. He's completed numerous classes and taken many courses. He's received his GED. He's as far as mechanics go, he's received many certifications in all that area. He's one of our tutors back in our VOTEC. He's completed all of the sex offender treatment that is required and asked of him, and he has even completed level 4, which a lot of guys don't do. He's been a facilitator. In other words, he teaches and helps other sex offenders. So that's a positive comment on him, that he's worked hard to gain. He hasn't had a write-up since 2018, which is over 6 years. He's been write-up free. He had a little trouble in the beginning, as most inmates do, but over the last in several years. He's done a lot better. He's a scribe member, again, one of our inmates. Again, he's done everything we've asked him to do in here, and in order to try to gain the things he needs to do to rehabilitate himself. Just the amount of time he served versus the crime is another consideration matter, in my opinion.
Thank you, Warden. All right, let's get to those that are in favor. Miss Fern Lee, your sister, Miss Lee.
Good morning. I have been nominated to speak on his behalf. There are 4 of us here today. I'd like to review it in 3 different ways: Jesse, the family, and the state. I believe that Jesse is remorseful. He appears to me when he talks to me on the phone. I know that he doesn't have the chip on his shoulder that he had when he was much younger, and he's not mad at the world like he was when he was much younger. And I'm grateful for that. It's easier to talk to him. It's easier to get along with him, even if it is on the phone or visitation. At this point, all of us except one in the family are of a retirement age. I'll be 72 this year. We are still in a position where we can give him a hand up, not a handout, a hand up, so that when he gets out, he's not looking for some way to support himself, get himself to work, trying to find a roof over his head or food on his table or anything like that. He has a house, he has a bedroom waiting on it. It's the house that represents security for him, the only security he had as a child. We are all in the position that we can help run him to work until he got the money for the insurance, money for the vehicle, on and on. As far as the state, there's a lot of people that reoffend. I don't know, what is it, 30–40%? Runs what, 35,000 plus per person? We got a lot of them sitting out there waiting to take his spot. He's worked hard. He is a master technician. He's got the papers behind him to prove what he has done. And we do have jobs waiting for him. We've got 2 people that are vying for him, and they're about 10 miles from the house. Perfect. They know that he is a felon. That's immaterial to them. They want somebody that will come to work and work. That's what Jesse does. He goes to work and he works. We just hope that at this point he can be paroled. I realize that the family that was damaged will never recover. They can't recover. It's there. They can't. Is he sorry for it? Yeah, I think he is. Seems to be to me. That's all I can say. Do you have any questions for me?
No, ma'am. Thank you for appearing today. Okay, now we're going to go to those that are in opposition. The district attorney, I'm gonna let you go last. I'm gonna let unless you want to go first, because it's your option. But Stephanie Nash, Victor Nash.
Yes, sir. Good morning. I'm gonna try and get through this as easy as I can. My name is Stephanie Nash. I'm Dylan's paternal aunt. I'm here in opposition of Demons' parole request. What that monster did to Dylan as an 18-month-old baby was pure evil. At 18 months old, Dylan was a healthy, happy, thriving toddler, and then on September 19th, 2001, changed our lives forever due to Dylan's actions. Dylan was in a coma and stayed in ICU for over 8 weeks, not knowing if he was going to live or die. My family never left his side. There was not a place on his entire body you could touch without causing him pain due to the extensive trauma his little body had suffered. When Dylan woke up from the coma, he was paralyzed on one side of his body. He was blind and could no longer speak or eat. After multiple surgeries and physical therapy, he regained his sight, but still has some paralysis and still could not walk properly or speak. We had to learn sign language to even communicate with him. Dylan suffered seizures for years and had to endure numerous surgeries to replace the shunt to drain the fluid from his brain. In addition, he also had to have several surgeries on his leg and years of wearing braces to help him walk. My mom dedicated the rest of her life caring for Dylan. When she got cancer, my dad, grandmother, and myself had to take over and care for not only Dylan, but my mother. The financial strain it put on my parents and my family was just added stress. I quit my job to take care of both mom and Dylan so that my dad could work to support them. Dylan had to have round-the-clock care because of the seizures. Dylan's entire school life, he was in special classes due to the brain damage and his disabilities. He was never able to participate in sports or any other outdoor activities. He had to have tutoring and additional help with all of his schoolwork. As Dylan has gotten older, he still struggles with those disabilities and has had to live the last 23 years of his life with the lasting, devastating, life-altering trauma that was inflicted on him. Dylan will have to live with these disabilities for the rest of his life. He doesn't get a reprieve. Dylan will have to live with these disabilities. He was sentenced to a lifetime of struggles and disabilities because of Dylan's actions. So I'm here today to ask you to deny the parole request. Dylan should not be allowed to be a free man. Dylan will never be free to live a normal life. I would also like to read a statement from Dylan. 23 years ago, I was an 18-month-old baby. I was raped, beaten, and left for dead by Jesse Demons. The demons inside that man were pure evil. The things that were done to me, I just cannot comprehend. If it wasn't for the nurses and doctors and the love of my family, I would not have survived. It was a pure miracle that I did. I was taught to forgive and forget, but that only happens in fairy tales. I do not forgive him. Not only was a horrible thing done to me, but it put my family through hell and changed all of our lives forever. I'm living the best life I can with the lasting effects of the trauma that demons inflicted on me. The love of my family had for me was greater than the evil inside that man, and I'm alive today because of that love. Job 4:8. As I have observed, those who plow evil and those who sow trouble reap it. It teaches us that those who sow evil actions and trouble will inevitably reap the consequences of their actions. Make him reap those consequences of his evil actions and deny his parole. Thank you.
Appreciate you speaking. Let's go to Avery Stevens, victim's grandfather.
Yes.
It was Steve.
I'm sort of, I don't understand how he can even come up for parole at this time after having such a long sentence. I mean, it's unbelievable that what this has put our family through, and you heard Stephanie, she said it all. I mean, everything was said. But if there was any point in time that y'all would have to seen the pictures of this baby, I guarantee you, he'd stay in there a little bit longer. Just the pictures would do it.
Thank you.
Stephanie said it all. I mean, it's unreal that I don't know that people can be rehabilitated for something like this and still think they're okay. I don't understand. But yes, my wife, she stayed the whole time in New Orleans with Dylan. And maybe come home 2 times in that 8 weeks he was in intensive care. This was the worst case of child abuse ever happened in Webster Parish that lived. Most of them don't live. But like I said, the prayers, I'm just, I don't know what else to say after, because Stephanie said it all. She had it down to the T.
Okay, we appreciate that, Mr. Stevens. Penny Linton, victim's aunt.
Yes, good morning. My name is Penny Litton and I'm Dylan's great aunt. I am the sister of my late sister Karen Stevens. I want to thank all of you for allowing Dylan's family to try to express our concerns. If you have even one moment of thought of his release, please keep this rapist and predator locked up. You have heard 2 family members express somewhat what Dylan has gone through. There is not enough time to tell everything this young man has endured. Not every single detail for the last 22 years of his life. My sister, Karen, gave up everything to make sure that Dylan lived, no matter how hard it would be on her. Karen devoted every single ounce of energy she had up until her death, a short 5 years later. Karen, my sister, made us promise that we would make sure that we fought to make sure that Jesse stayed locked up and got the sentence that he deserved, the maximum allowed. Dylan was approximately 20 years old before he knew everything that happened to him. During the beating and the rape he endured, he asked as a child, he asked as a teen many times. He was told about his beatings as a teen, then later about the rape. It was hard for us to get through that part with him. Only after his mind was able to comprehend, he was in his 20s before he found out about his rape. You've heard about his mental challenges, and that's why we waited. In closing, I would beg you to not allow this monster out of his jail cell. He will do this again and again to someone else's child. He needs to serve his 55 years. He was sentenced to. Maybe by then he will not be able to hurt another baby. And we are talking about a baby. He was 18 months old and had to start a whole new life. He had to learn how to walk again. He had to learn everything again. And that took so many years for Dylan to get back to his 18-month-old self. Trust me when I say this, you nor your families need to be sitting where my family is sitting at today, defending a child in your family to keep a predator in prison. It's not fair to Dylan for him to even think he's served enough time at this point. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. All right, now we're gonna go to the Assistant District Attorney, Mr. Richard Wright.
Thank you, members of the board. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Thank you for allowing me to speak, and thank you for allowing the family to speak and be a part of this. Let me express on behalf of District Attorney Skylar Marvin the strongest opposition that we can face or we can put forth against any modification or any parole for Mr. Denman. I was not the assistant district attorney on this case many years ago, but everyone in our local region had heard about this heinous, terrible crime. Judge Ford Stinson was the presiding judge in the case, and Judge Stinson has since retired, but is known in our area for being a very level-headed and fair judge. He's not a judge that routinely would give out lengthy jail sentences, prison sentences, and he would not do it lightly. But I would be remiss if I didn't refer back to what Judge Stinson told Mr. Denman at his sentencing. And Judge Stinson said that in his many years of practicing law, and it's notable that Judge Stinson actually came from a background in the public defender's office. This is not someone who, came even from the prosecutor's standpoint. He is someone who was with the public defender's office for many years. But Judge Stinson said that in his many years of practicing law, this had to be the most gruesome crime that he had ever seen committed. It was a heinous act done upon a defenseless 18-month-old child. But what I think is important, and I appreciate the family discussing it with Dylan and being able to discuss it with him, because that helps me feel that I can talk a little bit about some of the horrific facts of this. But the board needs to understand that this was not a one-time thing. This was the medical evidence indicated that this was repeated abuse of a defenseless 18-month-old child, repeated rapes of a defenseless 18-month-old child. By the time that Dylan was rushed to Minden Medical Center, he had a perforated left eardrum. He had hemorrhaging, rectal bruising, and bleeding and lesions. He had multiple bruises that were all in various stages of healing. And Judge Stinson pointed out in the sentencing that was significant because it wasn't just a one-time thing. This was an ongoing torture of an 18-month-old baby. And it had happened over a period of time. It was involved shaken baby syndrome that was clearly not accidental, and strangulation that was not accidental. One of the doctors, Dr. Springer, determined that Dylan had been victimized and re-victimized and re-victimized. It's also notable, and I would like the board to understand, if they don't already, that Mr. Denman committed this act while he was out on bond for another violent attack. He also performed poorly on probation for other crimes in the years immediately preceding this. He is. It's also very notable that at the time of his sentencing, and I don't know, I didn't sense any remorse today, but Judge Stinson put in the sentencing and noted that he showed no. I'm going to read what Judge Stinson had in the sentencing. He said, "You have shown absolutely no remorse for your crimes." I do agree that there is a high degree of recidivism. I believe that people that are child predators have a higher rate. And I don't know anything that can be done with them other than to keep them away from the most vulnerable in society, children. And this was a heinous crime. Mr. Dimon remains a danger to the community. There is strong victim opposition, and based on that and based on the underlying facts of the case, the 26th Judicial District and DA Marvin strongly oppose this. I would just like to add, because Dylan added a Bible verse, that Ezra 7:26 says, "Whoever will not obey the law of your God or the law of the king, let judgment be strictly executed upon him, whether by death or banishment." This is not an individual who has shown any propensity to follow the laws of man, and we would ask that his parole be denied.
Thank you, sir. All right, your case was assigned to, Ms. Ledoux.
Which means that I have read your file extensively, making sure that I'm aware of all of the information provided to us. It was 120 pages. I did note that you had 5 prior arrests, although you were a first felony offender. You had 5 prior arrests. Some great supervision. I want to ask, what was your relationship with the victim's mother?
Biologically, we're a third cousin.
You were third cousin. Okay, so it was not a romantic involvement?
Yes, it was.
It was. So, and how long had that relationship lasted until your incarceration? How long were you involved?
I'm not really sure. I don't really remember. I'm not
I mean,
sure.
the child is 18 months old. That was not your child. So were you involved before the child was born, before Dylan was born?
No, ma'am.
Okay, so it hadn't been that long.
No, it hadn't been long.
I don't have any further questions, Mr. Bowman.
Okay, Ms. Tillis, do you have any questions? No, no. I have no questions either. Is the panel ready to vote? Yes. Yes, you ready to vote? Mr. Dimon?
Yes, Mr. Dimon, I want you to understand that when we ask you about this crime, all you talked about was yourself, not about the victim, not about the victim's family, indicating very little thought to the victim. You have a static 99 score of 4, which within the Department of Corrections evaluation is a very high sex offender score. And I'm very glad that you've taken your sex offender treatment. I'm glad that it was afforded to you and that you are involved in that. But today, you've only served 24 years of a 59-year sentence. And for those reasons, my vote is to deny.
Mr. Tillis, my vote is to deny. Okay, Mr. Dimon, my vote would also be to deny due to law enforcement and victim opposition. I want to thank everyone that participated today, and good luck to you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
A fitting end to this monstrous parole hearing. I'm happy Miss Ledoux did that kind of mic drop about how, you show no remorse. You watch this parole. I had to go back to the beginning to rewatch how he described his crime, just to see what was there. Like what did I just see? And all he says was, well, the act that I committed was senseless. There was no point. I was around, wrong people. I drink. I commit myself to Jesus. Like, we haven't heard that before. No. It's the most horrific, vicious crime against children. How they almost unanimously say how they commit themselves to Jesus. And I love the 2 biblical quotes given both by little Dylan, who is now an adult, and the DA. And on that note, you hear from, well, actually, first let me go talk about whoever it was, one of his supporters that spoke on behalf of their family. And thank goodness we only had to hear from one person. But she starts off by saying there's 3 three things I'm going to talk about, right? Jesse, family, and the state. And she goes on to say, he doesn't have a chip on his shoulder. He's not mad anymore. And then the family, we're all retirement age. We're going to help him. And then finally the state. The state is so expensive for you to what, like $33,000 a person. And, you know, there's a lot of people waiting to take his spot. Yeah. So release him, like, I don't know, his full term date is 2055. Well, just release him before then. Who cares? Right? Please. It's like, shut up. Do you not realize that you're trying to release a monster? How blind can you be? There is nothing there. There is nothing there. You are talking about a defenseless child. Holy God. As someone who I can't. You know, I'm visiting. I don't know if you could tell. I'm visiting family. I'm not in my normal spot. I brought my computer with me. I have it, but the lighting is. And I have many siblings, and one of my sisters has a baby that's about 18 months old now, and they are defenseless. They are, just to think, and you hear the DA go through the details of this repeated horrific crime. And I don't know why he couldn't get a life sentence. The judge, it seems that maybe, and I don't have information. Richard did and thank you, Richard, for doing the research on this and all. But, you know, during my traveling, Richard has gone above and beyond. He's been actually recording all the hearings because I haven't been able to do it. And I know a lot of you write, who's Richard? And I bring him up all the time, but we are, you know, would love to have him come on so you can all meet him. But he is someone that just does this as a passion project. He doesn't, you know, get any other benefit from it than helping expose the really the good, the bad, and the ugly of the judicial system. That's what his passion is. And it's, you know, he was convicted of second-degree battery and second-degree cruelty with juvenile. That's what he has here, and I guess that was the maximum sentence. I don't know why the DA couldn't bring on other charges that would be more severe. It's just shocking to me that someone like this isn't locked away for life. You know, I don't understand why they didn't pursue harsher charges based off of the, like, why would it be second degree? Why would it not be first degree? And I scrolled through the legislation trying to figure this out, and I couldn't make sense of it. So I just don't know. But is it more two-facedness by the judiciary system? I mean, the judge clearly made a statement there. He said the most gruesome crime I have ever seen in his time on the bench, and I'm guessing maybe even as a defense attorney. And he was saying this was a judge that was more leaning on the, you know, who was a defense attorney, a public defender for his career before being a judge. Why is he not locked away for life? Why does he have a good time date of 2033? 9 years from now. Think about that. Not 9, sorry. I'm bad at math. 7 years. He is going to be walking free in 7 years. Someone who has the capability, someone who might be, I'm just a man, dude. I'm not a doctor. I'm only diagnosed, I'm only speculating on a situation like this. But I mean, can we not say psychopath? Sociopath? I mean, there's nothing there. It's why is he not locked up for life? Why was he not given the ultimate punishment if there's any case that classifies as the most severe? And even, listen to this, he's gonna get released at a static 99 a high, not that I care about these stupid static 99 scores, but you know that if you have a high score, that you really must be dangerous, because we see who they classify as low risk scores. And on that note, I'll just share with you the static 99 form that I Googled. I've been wanting to look at this for a while, just what a joke it is, because of course it's a joke, but now it's like, it really is. And I've spoken to people who've seen these different forms, and some of you have contacted me and kind of told me what a joke it is. But this is minors. This is it. I mean, this is what off of. Can you see it right? I don't know if you can see it. Okay, so you just fill out a 10-point questionnaire. That's how sophisticated this form is. I'm not surprised. We know that the whole algorithm score is ridiculous. But risk factor question 1. Young, score according to the offender's age at the time of release, flat minimum release date. So depending on how old they are, you get a score. So if you're age 18 to 34, you get automatically 1 point. 35 to 39, 0. Because we all know that when you're 34.9, you're more dangerous than when you're 35. Obviously, that's very clear to us. I mean, not the ones that we don't have PhD, so it's not so clear. We're not quite sure about that, but clearly it's. Oh, and then if you're 40 years old, you see, as soon as you turn 40, now you get a -1 on the risk score. You're less dangerous, because a lot happens when you turn 40. All of a sudden, your desire for children, it just goes away, obviously. Oh, and 60 and older. See, as soon as you turn 60, then you get less -3 points, because as we all know, the second anyone turns 60, I mean, there are no 60-year-old chomos, roaches, right? No, -3 points. And they go to question 2, which is a real, another brilliant question. Have you ever lived with a lover for at least 2 years? So if the answer is no, you get a point. You get punished. Because we all know that monsters never live with, women with children and things like that. Nope, never happens. Let's see, question 3. Index, non-sexual violence. Any convictions? Okay. I mean, that one I get. I mean, I guess. All right. Now, prior non-sexual violence, any convictions? So these are non. So you get, again, if there's yes or no. And this is like, can you imagine that if you have a prior, you only get 1 point extra? Prior sex offenders. So charges, convictions, they actually have a different bar for charges and convictions, which is just says all what you need to know. So if there are none, you get 0 points. If there was a prior charge, you get, I don't know, 1 to 2. If there's a conviction, you get 1. If you have 3 to 5 prior charges for sex offenses and 2 to 3 convictions, you only get 2 points. Look at that. You can't make this stuff up. Okay. I mean, let's just skip through, right? I mean, you get the point. This is what they do for their algorithm score. And he reached a score of 4. He reached a score of, so if you're -3 to 1, you're a low moderate risk. If you're 2 to 3, you're moderate to low. And if you're 4 to 5, you're moderate to high. So he's not high, he's a 4. So he's considered just a 4 to high. He's the third highest level. Now, if the score is 4, which is what he is, on the static 99R, which predicts sexual recidivism, this offender scored in the moderate to high risk range. Offender with his same score from the routine samples have been found to sexually recidivate at 6.1% to 12.2% after 5 years. This is what their chart says. And 12%, I don't even believe, like that means they get caught, first of all. And that's also a ridiculous thing, because think about what they're saying after 5 years. Now, if the score is -3, they say that it's an 0.7 to 2% chance. This whole thing, where did they come up with this data? We'll have to do a deep dive on this later. The whole thing's ridiculous. As we already knew. So for him to get a 4, he would have had to. So he'd be younger than. I don't know where he would have. Anyways, I feel like I digress. We saw parole hearings today that just make your blood boil, that make you rage. We saw the system being called out for how broken it is. We saw victims wondering why, how can this be? And this is again why we do this. It's so clear to any of us non-PhDs that the system is wrecked. It's so clear. It's so evident. Now, the more eyeballs on this, eventually I do think it will lead to change. I guess we can say thank goodness the parole board, they denied. It's not my favorite members on the board. I do like but even Mr. Freeman, he did a good job managing the situation, and Miss Ledoux, I appreciate her. She does a great job. You remember the disgust from Mr. Freeman on that last one, really just the disgust from the board in general, like not even wasting their breath on them. And you could see they're giving a lot more attention to the survivors, and we are seeing DAs show up that we have never seen before. This is, I do think, becoming a little bit of a trend. We're seeing more DAs show up more often, not as often as they should. They clearly missed a really critical case, but we are seeing it. We'll keep doing this as long as we can, and with that, I'll let you go.